Hi, I'm Louise Larson. I'm doing my monthly webinar for April 2024. I run August Consulting, a boutique college admissions consulting practice where I guide families on the road to college. And I'm a little late this month. It's August, not August, it's April. It's April 8th, the day of the eclipse. Just finished watching the eclipse. I'm a little late this month because I was away for Easter and I had visions of doing my webinar from where we went in Sun Valley and doing I was like, I'll do my webinar, I'll do my monthly blog from there. I can get that work done there. And then I went and put on Instagram, okay, I'm taking the week off and I'm just gonna post from vacation to kind of model downtime and taking time off. So then I'm out there doing that. I'm like, wait, I can't do my webinar from here if I said I'm taking the week off. So here I am. And I am usually I go about 30 days in between. So I have 30 days of news and notes. This month I have closer to 6 weeks, honestly, news and notes. So where to begin? As I said, it is April 8th. And so now we have all the decisions are out. Most of the Ivies released their answers on March 28th. A couple schools went after that. So now, if you know a senior, they have their answers. They have their choices. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But first, there's, all sorts of little tidbits of news in college admissions right now. And the first thing I wanted to share with you was Lisa Damour is an adolescent psychologist. She's written some books. She's got a pretty high profile, and she was on the Truth About College Admissions podcast with Brennan Barnard and Rick Clark from Georgia Tech. And she's been an adolescent psychologist for 30 years. And this is what she said. And I felt it was worth quoting her about her experience going through this, because this is somebody with, a lot of resources, a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge. And this is what she said. She said, not until I went through the process as a parent that I was like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. I knew it was hard, but I was not prepared for the sheer volume of work it created. The process took two parents with PhDs, fluent in how universities work. I was amazed at how much we were drawing on that knowledge base of being a university employee. It is hard and complex and challenging for us, meaning her family. It gave her great empathies for families that are going through the process. So if it feels a little bit complicated, this is somebody who has, a lot of resources and knowledge, and they found it very complex. So I thought I'd open with that, because if you're watching this, you're probably trying to sort this out a little bit, and to say, here's someone with a lot of information struggling. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my process as a parent towards the end of this too. It's not easy. All right, so let's talk a little bit about news and notes since March 30th or so, April 1st. In that same vein of stress, I want to point out there are 59 schools in the United States of America that accept less than 25% of the applicants. So those schools get lots of headlines. Their names in headlines are clickbait. But there's a lot of other schools. So, you can take a deep breath and say, yes, those schools are very selective, and maybe there is no way to get into them, but there's a lot of other schools. Since the test required announcements of Dartmouth and Yale last month, Brown has announced it is test required for next year, and University of Texas, Austin. Now, this is a little bit of a different thing. UT is a big state flagship. So I'm wondering how that will shift things. Maybe other big state flagships will come online with that. I'm trying to see, there was something here, that is challenging if they're announcing that at this late date, especially for athletes. if you're a UT recruit and you don't have test scores, you're going to go need to get some test scores. University of Virginia and University of Maryland suspended Greek life in early March due to hazing issues. The Virginia governor signed bills eliminating legacy preference at Virginia public universities. Colorado banned this in 2021. And Connecticut, California, Massachusetts, and New York are also considering doing that. So there's that. I hate it when this happens, this next thing I'm going to share. And it happens every year somewhere in the admissions process where students get emails that they shouldn't have gotten admitting them. And then the school says, whoops, we're so sorry, you're not admitted. So there's a rumor that what I heard in my social media circles, professional circles, was waitlisted, the Wake Forest waitlisted students in the early decision round, and they received an email of acceptance congratulating them on their admission that was meant for accepted students, and they received they thought they'd been admitted, and then they received an apology email from Wake saying that they had not been accepted and that the email was sent to the wrong group. Something like this happens every admissions cycle. And I really almost feel like the schools ought to just say, our bad, you are admitted, even if it was a mistake. I think it's just cruel. I mean, these are children. And when I reference my work, I like to use the word children because I know they're big, I know they're getting older, I know they're on the cusp of adulthood, but at the end of the day, most of these applicants are minors. They are children. And so that's really a bitter pill to swallow. What else? I'm gonna come back to the FAFSA. There was something else. Okay, I want to talk about closures, college closures. And the New York State has had 12 colleges close in the past 8 years. And in the past 12 months, 5 of them have closed. And in that same vein, in West Virginia, Alderson Broadus closed last August. And when a small school closes, usually a lot of schools around it will say, hey, you guys can transfer here. And that's nice, but forced transfer is not simple. And so these students from Alderson Broadus in West Virginia were invited to join the students at Notre Dame College in West Virginia. And they just announced that they're closing. So if you went from Alderson Broadus that was closing to Notre Dame that was closing, now you've got to go find another home. So I just say that to when you really are looking at a smaller school, to look very carefully at where they are. And I saw a great quote from somebody who said this. They said, put in, oh, you know what? It was the guy that runs admissions at Binghamton University. He said, put in the school's name and budget cuts. Like Google XYZ college budget cuts, see if anything comes up. That gives you a little bit of sense of which way the wind was blowing. I thought that was a great tip. Okay, so there is a lot of headlines about the $100,000 college cost. And I'm not saying that that couldn't happen, but what I encourage families to do is really look at room, board, tuition. Because when colleges talk about cost of attendance, which is how they build their financial aid package, they also include books, travel, and personal expenses, and they can put any number in there they want. And there was a lot of press about Vanderbilt was about to cross the $100,000 threshold, but they had all these accountings for engineering fees and health costs and books and travel. And, I'm not saying that these schools aren't going to cost $100,000. And if you have, like, been talking recently to a lot of sophomore parents with their oldest child, and those people will probably, with their second or third children, actually see the room, board, and tuition cross the $100,000 Rubicon. I'm not saying these schools aren't a fortune. I'm just saying that the $100,000 headline is a little bit of clickbait because it might be low 90s, but they're putting things in there that might not be an expense for you. If you live near Nashville, it's not going to cost you a lot of money to get your kid to Vanderbilt. If you live in California, it's going to cost you probably more money than they actually have in the travel budget. So I always encourage families to really compare apples to apples with room, board, and tuition and see what it looks like. All right, what else? Before I go into the FAFSA, there was a few more things. I talked about the closures. I thought this was interesting. The Center on Education and Workplace has talked about the associated cost of going to college has exceeded measures of ability to pay. With the inflation over the past 4 decades, college costs have gone up 200% since 1980. Wages have not done that. And what they're saying here is that there is a new burden on families. So if it feels like, my gosh, you're talking about $90,000 for college and this feels like a lot, it has grown disproportionately, the cost. I posted on Instagram earlier in the month a really interesting graph from is it Scott Galloway? Scott Galloway. What college graduate salaries were versus the cost of a house in the 70s or 80s and what they are now. It's really a big jump. So, when that's to be considered, as you make decisions around college costs and borrowing, it's important to consider. All right. So University of Florida is adding early action next year. So if you're applying to University of Florida and you're organized and ready, you can apply early action and hear maybe a little sooner than you would in the regular decision round. I wanted to draw some attention to admissions among programs. So a lot of times we look at admissions statistics and they are kind of global. For the school, they admitted they had this many applicants, they admitted this many kids. It's important to know that sometimes within a specific school or major, things can be very different. I think Bucknell's admit rate is maybe in the low 30s, but their admit rate for their school management, their business program that you cannot transfer into, this past year was 14%. So that's a really different number than low 30s. Wisconsin-Madison has 650 spots in their business program, and 45% of them are mandated for Wisconsin applicants. So that leaves 350 spots in the Wisconsin business program for out-of-state students. So little details like that can be important to know when you have a student considering these schools. All right, so I am going to talk a little bit about FAFSA because it's all over the place, and I'm not going to dwell too long on what the issues are. It has been delay after problem after miscalculation. It doesn't even matter that much what the problems are for our purposes. I want to offer more solutions. Like, how do you negotiate this? If this is you and you have a FAFSA application out there and you haven't gotten the answers and you're looking at a couple schools with a senior, how are you going to negotiate this? So I am always much more about solutions. We know what the problems are. All right. So with the FAFSA, and I have really enjoyed, and I'm going to jump back here, all my webinars the past couple months, I've been referencing shepherding one of my biological children through the law school application process. And I mean, I am a little blind mouse. I was so, it was so productive for me in many ways because I really understood how parents feel on the other side of this table when they're talking to me. And I felt like a camel in an oasis with the consultant I used when I was on the phone with her. And anyway, when you don't, it's stressful when there's so much information out there and you're not sure how to get it. So we're going to talk about FAFSA, and I'm going to tell you that we went to Western New England School of Law on March 1st all day for this giant presentation for admitted students. And at 4:30 on a Friday, they rolled out the poor head of financial aid. And I was like, Oh my gosh, this poor lady. I mean, because I know what this is like at the undergraduate level these days. And I was like, oh, this poor lady, I can't imagine how hard it is to be in these offices right now. So here's my first tip is if you need to call a financial aid office, you have to be really, really nice, really patient, really understanding. This is probably an emotional call for you. I had a friend who a couple years ago had some financial reversals and had to call a financial aid office. And she said, I got on the phone with them and I burst into tears. That's okay. You can be emotional, you can be stressed, but they're stressed too. So build a collegial relationship with the person on the phone because their life is not easy. So the FAFSA, so this is what you're going to do. If you are waiting for FAFSA information, call the school. If you have an acceptance, if you have a child with an acceptance, call the school, call the financial aid office. Admissions office calls should be by the student. Financial aid can be by the parent. You are the person really kind of where the buck stops. It's okay for you to call. And you can ask them. You can say, listen, I know you don't have the FAFSA out, or maybe you don't have it, or it's miscalculating. Could I give you my information? Could we calculate it manually? What are my options? So if you call them and just say, hey, I need some help, see what they say. That is a reality. And I have seen schools kind of post and say, hey, we're just gonna just call us, we're gonna help you tabulate it, and we'll go with what we have unless your FAFSA comes out completely different, So I see schools trying to work with people. That is my first suggestion. Now, the greater possibility might be that you have some applications out to some CSS profile schools and some FAFSA schools. And your profile schools might have given you answers. And your profile schools might be holding to their May 1st deadline, saying, we want an answer by May 1st. And you might be saying, wait a minute, it's April 8th, and I don't even have my FAFSA stuff back, and I got to make a decision. My kid's got to make a decision. You have several options here. One is to call the profile school and say, hello, I'm waiting for another option to see how the FAFSA comes out, what my financial aid package looks like. What are my options here? You might be able to ask for an extension. They might tell you they are in the process of announcing an extension. But at the end of the day, if all else fails, you could deposit at the profile school, and these deposits tend to be $300 to $500. And if the FAFSA school comes out in June with more money, you can deposit, and you say, you know what, this FAFSA school makes more sense for us, then you can say, thank you to the May 1st school. I'm not coming, and deposit at the FAFSA school. Now that might cost you your deposit. You are not supposed to double deposit. You say in the common app, you agree to that when your student signs the common app. So a double deposit, can lead to a school rescinding admission. Are they going to do that in 2024 with this mess? I have no idea. But you don't have to double deposit. You can deposit for a May 1st or a May 15th deadline. And if you get a later FAFSA school come out, you can say, thank you to that school. I'm going in this direction. And you will be out some money potentially. But in the cost of college and making a wrong choice, I wouldn't let $300 to $500 decide necessarily. What makes me sad about the FAFSA is that there are students that they're running out of runway. They are going to lose a whole group of students. And these students typically are going to be the type of student that maybe they're first generation, maybe they're going to college kind of on a wing and a prayer. If you've read some books like Tara Westover's Educated, where you see like $50 can be the difference between making it through a semester or not. Really under-resourced students tend to just do it so close to the bone, and this type of delay can knock them out off the runway. And when these types of students don't show up, little colleges that count on students like this can close. So it's a bad dynamic. And it makes me sad because there's a whole group that is going to be potentially very adversely affected by this, perhaps irrevocably. All right. So there was all that. What I wanted to talk about is we've just come through, all the answers are out. We know there were more applications this year. We know acceptances were tougher to come by. But what also is going to be very hard for the colleges to predict and know at this point is yield. Yield is going to plunge because kids applied to so many more schools. There's so many deferrals and wait lists. I would say to juniors, demonstrated interest is going to be all the more important next year. Schools are going to be looking to see who applied and who was likely to come, and they're going to gauge that by demonstrated interest. So we know this year was crazy. I'm not going to sit here and spout off different statistics of how selective it was. That's pointless. But what are we going to do? So let's talk briefly about waitlists. Here's a couple things you need to know about waitlists. Waitlists are an enrollment management tool for colleges. And some schools will take a waitlist group as large as their freshman class. And you might say, why would they do that? Because they're not going to take everybody, but they do. So a couple things to just know about the waitlist. You should do exactly what the school says. If they say send us a letter, send them a letter. If they want an extra essay, write the essay. If they say just check this box and don't do anything else, check the box and don't do anything else. You can reach out to your regional representative, potentially, maybe, to just say, this is my first choice, I will come. That's important to know, that if you are going, this is a school that you would go to, I would tell them that. One way to feel this out might be to ask your high school to make a phone call. Some schools will know at this point, are they going to the wait list or not? Some schools might have such a giant group coming in from early decision and so many deposits already that they might be able to tell your guidance counselor, we don't think we're going to the wait list, or we anticipate going to the wait list after May 1st, or whatever it might be. That is not a call you make. That would be a call your school makes, not a parent or a student. So there's that. The other thing that you need to know, and it might not be fair and it's not my fault, but generally waitlist kids are going to be full pay. They are not, most schools will have exhausted their financial aid budgets. So there's that. So the other piece of the puzzle is you can see wait lists that last year they took 0, the year before they took 500, the year before they took 20, and the year before they took 1,200. You can go in and find that data. And it can be a little bit like predicting the stock market. I don't know, like, did this go up every year? No, some years it goes down. So based on prior years, there's no guarantee that that the wait list will move. The other thing you need to know about the wait list is that these are used to fill in gaps that are not being, that areas where institutional priorities are not being met. So if they're short on kids from the Pacific Northwest and they need more biology majors, and they are heavily subscribed with girls, they're going to be looking for a boy from the Pacific Northwest that wants to study biology. This is not like lining up at the movie theater where you walk in, where when you got there, you've got a line, you get a spot in the line and you walk in. I would pay close attention to gender, because University of Vermont Post and in the New York Times showed about gender in schools sometime in the past 6 months. The sophomore class at University of Vermont is 67% women. I believe the freshman class this year at Tulane is 67% women. You can bet those schools are trying to even out those ratios. So sometimes it can just come down to gender. All right, so that is how the wait list works. Truthfully, the wait list this year, I think they some of them might really move. Some of them might not. But the thing you need to know is that the wait list is usually closer to a no than a yes. So let's talk about making a decision. If you have a student that has several choices and it's April 8th, and let's just say your schools are holding to a May 1 deadline at this point, just for argument's sake, hopefully maybe you have more time. Here are some things to think about. The first thing that I would take a long, hard look at is location. Do I like this place? Can I manage the travel? What does the travel look like for our family? What are the costs involved? Does the climate, does the suburban, urban, or rural environment suit me? Take a long look at actual location. I would take a long look at cost. I would add up what room, board, and tuition looks like for the first year. I would add 3% for every year moving forward. I would add up the 4-year costs and see what you're looking at and subtract any merit scholarships from that. I would take a long look at the merit scholarships. And what are the criteria for them? I've seen merit scholarships that require a 2.5, and I've seen them that require a 3.5. So you want to have them, if you're banking on some scholarship money that the school is giving you, you obviously want to keep that. Usually they're for 8 semesters, 12 credit. I mean, there's usually a lot of fine print around those. So I would take a long look at those. In that same vein, I would take a long look at IB, AP, and dual enrollment credit, and how each institution will evaluate those for you. Some schools will give you a lot of credits for a 3 in the AP. Some schools require a 5. Some schools for a certain level of French will give you 4 credits. Some will give you 8. Some schools just waive you out of lower level courses. And I remember a parent with a really high achieving kid that she went, I think she was, I don't know, Boston College said they were going to waive her out of low level courses, and she had like a gazillion credits. And she was like, "These people think I'm stupid. Like they're going to waive her out of credits, like waive her out of classes. Like I want some credit here for this." So look at how that would be evaluated. I would take a long look at housing. Some schools require you to live on campus for 4 years. Some schools don't guarantee any housing. I would take a look at what that looks like at each school, and also, if they do not require housing, or they don't guarantee housing, what is that going to look like on the open market for you to go rent something for a student to live in? How hard is it? How expensive is it? If they go off campus, is a car required? That's another important thing to think about. Digging into the details of an academic program. What does this major look like at the school? And this is pretty easy to Google on the school's website. Different majors in different schools can look like different things, be it a marketing major, bio major. Some schools, like I've seen business programs that have a requirement to study abroad. There's engineering programs where you can't study abroad. Weigh all that. And the other thing I would look at is, not that this is the most important thing right now, are there any integrated accelerated master's programs where maybe senior year you start a master's and there's a 5th year option to get a master's degree? That's another thing to consider. I just want to see, I feel like I am forgetting something. I would also consider class size. Are these schools, is everything in a giant lecture hall with 300 kids? Is it 12 kids in a class? What are you used to? What's your learning style like? What feels good to you? You'd want to know what you're walking into. I would also say, and I had a family say to me, "Oh, we don't need to go visit. We saw it already." I would really encourage students to get on campuses where they are admitted. It is a psychologically different experience to step onto a campus admitted than as a prospective applicant that you don't know if you can get in. Even a likely school, you don't know till you're admitted. Stepping onto a campus and looking around as an admitted student is really, really empowering. And so I wouldn't hesitate to get back on a campus, even if you've been there, even if you feel like, well, I feel like I know it. I think that can be really powerful. And schools have really strong admitted student days where they come in and set up mock classes and all sorts of stuff. So I would really, if you're struggling, if your student has some choices and they're weighing their options, I would do that. So the thing is, if you have 2 to 5 schools with acceptances, you're not going to just pick one. I think the process is much more a process of elimination, where you can kind of look at them all and say, wow, this one's going to be an extra $75,000 over 4 years. No thanks to that one. Or this one's really far away. Or this one, really in my heart of hearts. I think that I love the word vibe, because I feel like vibe is just like, I don't know, but I felt the vibe and I liked it. So I am going to tell parents, it is really important to get really quiet. You will have a lot of opinions. You will want to say a lot of things. This will be going through your head nonstop. And it is so important to just stop talking. Don't let your body language display anything. Just be super, super neutral. And I will relay a story of my oldest. And the final decision, I can't explain what the last 96 hours were like. And I was like, here I am, somebody who does this professionally, and I am paralyzed. I was like, so what happened was, he came down to 3 schools by the end. And in April, we were going around and he kind of narrowed it down to 3, and we went and visited 2, and I went. And then the third school, the final school, the last weekend that was available, he went to my alma mater. And my husband and I both went to St. Lawrence University, and we went up there in 2 cars on a Friday for an accepted students day. And this was a Friday. The deposit day was Thursday. So like we're within a week. And we go up to St. Lawrence, and there we are, and we do all this stuff. And I could see his body language. He was just like, I don't like this place. And I was like, that's fine. I don't care if you like it. And I was, throughout the day, paradoxically, more and more thrilled to see the options that the school provides. And in that exact same vein, more and more convinced every hour I was there that it was not the place for him. And every hour he was there, he exhibited that too. So I was like, great, you don't have to come here. I don't care. But this place is a wonderful opportunity for the right type of kid. And so what am I talking about? St. Lawrence is a really blank canvas. You can go up there and double major and pick up a language and do an internship. And anything you go into somebody's office and say, hey, I have an idea, they're like, let's do it. And so it really is a great place for somebody who really wants to engage and really wants to do their own thing and have people excited for what they want to do. They're really doing great stuff up there. For my child, I knew he was STEM oriented. I didn't think they had the academics that he wanted. I didn't see him taking advantage of their ability to just coordinate and put all these different programs together that somebody wanted to do. And this kid is a really, really passionate skier. And a lot of people think of St. Lawrence as a ski school, but it really isn't that close to skiing. So I'm sitting there going that he should never come here, but I was thrilled for it and would recommend it and happy to talk about it and really happy to see how well they're doing. And then at the end, it was time for me to leave. And they said, would anybody like to go on a tour? And I was thinking, well, we've been on a tour, so we don't need to go on a tour. And the plan was, I did not clarify this, I was going home on Friday, and he and a friend were staying with another friend for Springfest. So we go on, it's the day is ending, and the last option is a tour. And I said, well, we've been on a tour. And he's like, you know what? I would like to go on another tour. I said, fine. You want to go on a tour? We'll go on a tour. So out pops the tour guide, who is this gorgeous senior. And he says, oh, I'm staying for Springfest this weekend. And she's like, oh my gosh. And then she's like, we got to switch numbers. And then he said, my parents both went here. And she was like, well, that's it. You know, you're coming. And for the next hour, she knew everyone. She kept introducing him. He's staying for Springfest. His parents both went here. And everybody's high-fiving him going, you know, you're coming here. By the end of the hour, He was like a contestant at the end of a game show. He was so excited and happy. He couldn't get me in the car fast enough. And I drove out of there like, what just happened? Like, he shouldn't go there. He shouldn't go there. And now he's there all weekend. And the next deposit day is Thursday. Like, I don't have another weekend to get him to another campus. And all of his other visits were dorky visits with me. And now he's there for the whole weekend. And I'm like, this is a disaster. So what did I do? He came home Sunday night and his eyes were spinning. He was so excited. He had so much fun. And I wanted to grab him and yell, "You can't go there." That's what I wanted to do. That had been playing in my head all weekend. And I smiled and I said, "Oh, that's so great. I can't wait to hear about your weekend." And I did nothing. And it was torture. It was torture. And I'm telling you, it played in my head like a ticker tape. He can't go there. He can't go there. And on Monday, I did the same thing after school. I took a deep breath, said, "Your father and I think maybe we should go out Tuesday night for dinner," because I felt he needed to like get it out of his system a little more. So Tuesday night, we will go out to dinner and talk about your options. And I was very calm and didn't try not to let on that I was so opposed to this. So again, I did nothing. I was quiet. I was calm. Now, Tuesday night, we are 48 hours. We're probably, 52 hours away from having to deposit. And we went out to dinner. We sat down. We ordered something. And he said, "Well, I don't know where I'm going to go to college, but I've decided to eliminate St. Lawrence." And I almost fell out of my chair. And I don't know what happened the rest of the night. I don't know what we talked about, what I ate. I was so happy. I was so relieved. And I didn't even care where he chose between the other two. But what that took from when he got home to say nothing was exhausting. And here is the thing, your student needs to really decide. So it's important, as much as you're going to have thoughts and ideas and opinions, and you're going to be thinking about it nonstop, it is really important to let them have time and space to decide. And he ended up going to the University of Vermont. There were ups, there were downs, there were challenges, there was majestic, wonderful things. There was a great crew of friends, there was a great education, there was a job. And I wish I was more organized with my technology, because really what I would love to do is show you when you know it worked. You know it worked at graduation. That's when you'll know, was it the right place? So I share that story with you because I open with Lisa Damour's quote about how hard this is. And it is hard. And even when you know a lot, and I know a lot, each child in their undergraduate progression has had parenting challenges to make decisions around this. My child number 2 did some transferring in the middle of the pandemic. Child number 3 was a different set of challenges. And shepherding your own child through this is exhausting. So I share that story to say, allowing them the time and space is so important. And I want to just close with this. I just listened to Lee Coffin. Lee Coffin runs a podcast called Admissions Beat. He's the director of admissions at Dartmouth. And I loved what he said. He said, "A decline is not a failure." I love that. And he also shared he, for 30 years, has signed personally in ink every admissions letter he's ever sent in the school's colors. And he said it takes him 5 hours to do Dartmouth. So anyway, I hope that this is of some use to you, and good luck with your decisions. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.